My name is Arvind Gupta and I'm a toy maker. I've been making toys for the last 30 years. The early 70s, I was in college. It was a very revolutionary time. There was a political ferment, so to say, students out in the streets of Paris revolting against authority. America was jolted by the anti-Vietnam movement, the civil rights movement. In India, we had the Naxalite movement, the Jayaprakash Narayan movement. Whenever there is a political churning of society, it unleashes a lot of energy. The national movement in India was testimony to that. Lots of people resigned from well-paid jobs and jumped into the national movement. Now, in the early 70s, one of the great programs in India was to revitalize primary science in village schools. There was a person, Anil Sadgopal, did a PhD from Caltech and returned back as a molecular biologist in India's cutting research institute, the TIFR. At 31, he was not able to relate the kind of esoteric research which he was doing with the lives of the ordinary people. So he resigned and went and started a village science program. Many people were inspired by this. The slogan of the early 70s was, go to the people, live with them, love them, start from what they know, build on what they have. This was the kind of defining slogan. Well, I took 1 year. I joined Telco, make Tata trucks very close to Pune. I worked there for 2 years and I realized that I was not born to make trucks. Often one doesn't know what one wants to do, but it's good enough to know what you don't want to do. So I took 1 year off and I went to this village science program, and which was a turning point. It was a very small village, a weekly bazaar where people just once in a week, they put in all their wares. So I said, I'm going to spend a year over here. So I just bought one specimen of everything which was sold on the roadside. And one thing which I found was this black rubber. This is called as a cycle valve tube, where you pump in a bicycle, use a bit of this. And there's some of these models. So if you take a bit of the cycle valve tube, you can put 2 matchsticks inside this, and you make a flexible joint. It's a joint of 2. You start by teaching angles, an acute angle, a right angle, a obtuse angle, a straight angle. It's like a universal coupling. If you had 3 of them and you loop them together, well, you make a triangle. With 4, you make a square, you make a pentagon, you make a hexagon, you make all these kinds of polygons. And they have some wonderful properties. If you look at the hexagon, for instance, it's like an amoeba, which is constantly changing its outer profile. You can just pull this out, this becomes a rectangle. Give it a push, this becomes a parallelogram. But this is very shaky. Look at the pentagon, for instance. Pull this out, this becomes a boat-shaped, a trapezium. Push it and it becomes a house-shaped. This becomes an isosceles triangle. Again, very shaky. Give it this. The square might look very square and prim. Give it a little push, this becomes a rhombus. It becomes a kite-shaped. But give a child a triangle, well, she can't do a thing to it. Why use triangles? Because triangles are the only rigid structures. We can't make a bridge with squares because if the train would come, it would start doing a jig. Ordinary people know about this because if you go to village India, they might not have gone to engineering college, but no one makes a roof truss like this because they put tiles on top, it's just going to crash. They always make a triangular roof. Now this is people science. You know, if you were to just poke a hole over here and put a 3rd matchstick, you get a T-joint. And if I were to poke all the 3 legs of this in the 3 vertices of this triangle, I would make a tetrahedron. So you make all these 3D shapes, you make a little tetrahedron like this. And once you make these, well, you make a little house, put this on top, you can make a joint of 4, you can make a joint of 6, you just need a thorn. Now this was, make a joint of 6, you make a icosahedron. It's like, you can play around with it, this makes like a igloo. Now this is in 1978, I was a 24-year-old young engineer, and I thought this is so much better than making trucks.